For real good to go?
Mm-hmm.
All right, welcome to the Miller Martial Arts Podcast, episode 7. Brought to you by Miller Martial Arts, the only place in the world to train mixed martial arts. So today we got a special guest, former MMA promoter, former MMA manager, former MMA fighter, Georgia Athletic Entertainment Commission Chief of Officials, multiple time Spartan Death Race finisher, first certified Spartan SGX coach in the state of Georgia, Matthew Waller. Welcome to the show.
For a minute there, I thought you were Bruce Buffer.
I'm not. All right. So before we get into who you are, how you grew up, how you became to be, we have a gut check round. It's supposed to loosen everything up, make you feel good. What do you do every day to get your day started? What's your morning routine or afternoon whenever you get up?
Well, my days used to vary, but now it's kind of a weird routine. Thanks to the coronavirus, I'm a personal trainer over at the Wellness Center, and they shut it down, and they made it into a daycare for for the nurses and doctors' kids. So I'm getting up about 5 o'clock every morning, and I'm basically playing daddy daycare until about 1. So that's my day right now.
You brush your teeth, you meditate, you do a yoga session before you go do that. What do you do?
So I used to have, I've got plantar fasciitis that I've been battling for about a year, which is really weird because it got worse and worse. And then finally in the mornings now what I'm doing is before I actually get up, I'm stretching that foot really hard. That's really about it.
You know, Yoga Joe over here, he's our yoga instructor. He could probably help you out with some good stretches and things like that you could do.
For a while, I was wearing like a sock and that kind of stuff. I tore. Nobody said anything about phones.
Go ahead and take the call if you got to.
Hey, spot on home inspections. Shameless plug. What was that?
You like holding down on golf balls?
Yeah, we get all. Yeah, I did that. I went on a hike one time with about. I was doing an event, and I probably had on about 45 pounds in my pack, and then it felt stupid at the time to do it, and then when I got back that day, it was pretty tight, and I rolled it with a tennis ball, and then I could almost feel things breaking up in there.
Yeah.
And then the next morning I tried to do it again, and it was so tender that I couldn't touch it again.
Yeah.
So then and then I never. It was weird. It got to a level that was so bad that I was wearing a boot, I was wearing a sock. Jeff Kemp, who actually is a referee and a timekeeper with the state, had sent a picture to me where he had surgery on his, and he showed it to me before, and I said, "Show me the picture, send it to me." So I could actually look at it, because something like that would actually keep me mentally going, I don't want to have the surgery. Let's stretch it more, because a foot surgery is really bad to have. So it was a pretty gnarly picture. But yeah, I looked at that a lot, and then so that would kind of force me to stretch it out. But after I did that hike, it was probably 17 miles or so. I came back to the house and was like, that was dumb. And then, but actually I think that was probably the best thing for it, which is really weird. So, because literally every morning I was getting up like an old man just getting beat up. You're tiptoeing around the house. You don't want to be barefoot and that kind of deal. But that really softened it up a lot. I don't know if that just broke up a lot of things in there or what it was.
Yeah, I know people get it and they can't put their heel down. They're walking around on their tippy toes.
Well,
it had gotten that way.
The most depressing morning routine of the guests that we've had thus far. You're just like, I have to prep before I can even get out of bed.
Yeah, but here's the deal. So I'm still looking down at the grass and not at the roots. So every day's a good day.
All right.
So you have to look at it that way, right? But now I don't have to do that. It's bad. It used to be I was tiptoeing, like you were saying, it was bad. So, but now I'm jogging a little bit, and I've got a torn meniscus also on that same side.
Same.
So and then I've got what they call, I didn't know this until recently, a mouse in the joint.
Mm.
So do you know what that is? I didn't know.
A mouse?
I need to name the mouse actually.
I don't even know what that means.
It's like a loose fragment in there. So every now and then your knee will kind of lock up and pinch on it.
Oh, okay.
But it's really weird. After I did that hike, it was like that whole body. It's like everything kind of went back, and then it was fine again. So we'll ride that coaster until it jumps real again.
What about nicknames growing up? Did you have any?
This is G-rated?
I mean, this is about you. Whatever you care to share. You don't have to say how you don't have to say how you got it. You can just say what it is if you want.
In high school, they actually called me Junebug. Junebug. Yeah. I actually had a shirt. I did a bunch of bike rides. It was Bragg. It was bike ride across Georgia, and we all kind of had nicknames. Our group was called the Chain Gang, and bunch of us from high school. We probably started about 9th grade. We did that about 7 to 9 years. Every year we get out and we do that, and we'd all hang out. We all had our own little T-shirts, and like we made our own club. And so it would be Junebug, and then it was Stick. But I'm not going to go into the details.
Okay, I forgot how we can talk about that.
Well, it got to
bring
be
it off the air. Okay, so
it was short for something else.
Okay, so
my mom called me that in public, and I was like, so it Stick stuck. So.
Okay, Stick stuck. Okay.
Now it's Santa.
What is your Santa?
Yeah, that's actually on my Facebook page. You can see that.
Okay, so how did you get that?
Fat Jolly Man? I don't know.
Okay.
No, I got a Christmas tree farm. Every time I do races and stuff, I was always wearing Santa gear. It's in between Barnesville and Thomaston, directly across from the Rock Ranch. You can almost throw it. I mean, actually, you see the sign from when you're pulling out of their place.
What's it called?
The Rock Christmas Tree Farm. It's the name of the town. So it's in between Barnesville and Thomaston. It's right there.
Okay.
Some property I inherited. I don't know if did you ever go out there?
Yeah.
So my mom kept saying for years, you need to do this, make this do a tree farm.
I didn't know it was a Christmas tree farm.
I
thought it was just like
it was
some country property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it had cattle on it before, and then my mom had it, and cattle removed.
We barbecued out there and had a cutting party and some of this stuff.
Yeah. So my mom kept saying, you need to do a Christmas tree farm, and and I kept laughing about it. And then this weird guy named Al Gray introduced me to, y'all know Al, right?
Yeah. We know Al very well.
So Al introduced me to a guy named Toby Bulletin who has a tree farm in Lizella, right around the corner from where he lives. And I basically volunteered out there for a couple of years, and I learned how to trim the trees, plant the trees, that kind of stuff. I told the guy what I was going to do, and he basically took me down to buy the trees for the first year from a guy down in Cordele. And I went and started planting mine from there. So it's progressed into that, which is really kind of cool because there's a barn out there, and during the weekends and Christmas time, you can sit out there and watch the families come out. Come out there and kind of hang out one weekend. It's a lot of fun. And, we do it like a bonfire and it's kind of chill. So sometimes
swords. Not around Christmas time, anyways.
A license. You have to have a license to do a sword in Upson County.
Oh, okay.
Upson County. There you go.
Favorite piece of martial arts training equipment? Could be a specific brand, or it could be a specific type of equipment. It's supposed to be loose. It could be anything.
I'm trying to think. What would...
Mine was a mouthpiece.
That actually was one of the first things that went in my head, because a lot of times I would use that to try to dig my way out. I would go with that.
That's a good one. You like the single bite down or the double bite?
It was always a double. Wisp.
Yeah.
Is what I always had, because I could still clamp and breathe.
Yeah.
So I wasn't in a panic. Yeah, and then all of a sudden you funneled. If you have that single, you funnel that hole real tight, and you can't really breathe through it as much. So they say actually, Trey, the guy named Trey Brown, got
his teeth knocked in.
Yeah,
by Dustin
but
Hazlett.
that company, I believe
they paid him.
Yeah,
it was up to $10,000, I think.
It was
or
crazy,
something like that. I don't know if he got the full 10.
All I know was we were cornering him, and after the fight, he looked over and said, "Can you go in the ring and get my teeth?" And we were like, "What?" And it wasn't his teeth were gone, but his teeth had been pushed back, and so it was kind of crazy. So,
yeah. Do you have a concealed carry of choice that you like?
None that I would like to mention.
Okay,
but some people I know like to put a lot of stuff like that out there. Personally, I don't. I'm the kind of person that you don't need to know I have it until you have to know I have it.
Okay. Pet peeve from the training on the mats?
Oh, man. It would be body odor. I mean, nobody wants to roll with the stinky gi, or, if you're training, if you're competing, that's one thing. But if you're training, you want to get in as much time as possible. And I don't want to be having to deal with other things versus.
On our first film sessions review that we had, I mentioned how in my second fight, at the first time I fought, Joel Weldon, I think strategically he was smelly on purpose, and how it was all for the whole evening. I couldn't get it off me until I was able to shower. It smelled so bad.
From my knowledge, that was normal.
Okay. All right. What was your favorite takedown? And it's okay if you suck at it. Just your favorite one.
Favorite one to be taken down with, or
no, just the one that.
I mean, just whatever worked.
Sweet.
It's been a long time since
I know.
been on the mat. So, oh man, anything that worked. I mean, everybody kept saying I was really unorthodox. And my whole thing was I probably did a lot of stupid stuff that made it look that I knew what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it kind of got people kind of worried when I was doing it. When I was clueless sometimes.
Yeah.
And it was, they was kind of scramble and I would catch something completely off guard. And it was like, okay, there it is. So,
No, sweet.
I don't know, name some. What do you got?
Scissor sweep? Ice sweep?
Whatever word.
What about a submission? You gotta have a submission.
You liked?
I'm from the day that we would get a 6-pack of beer and get in a barn and beat the hell out of each other. You know, and we're going to work X guard. We didn't do that. We just beat the hell out of each other. So some of the things.
You didn't have one submission that you finished people with more than the other?
No. I was pretty much, around with it. Just I took it everything. No, I mean, it would depend. It would depend on who you were going with. I think I always try to look at it that way, going, okay, which is really the wrong way to look at it if you think about it. If you're trained with someone, you don't want to go, okay, I'm going to beat him with this real quick and then call it a day. I mean, looking back at it, we were 21. I'm going to say that because I just said beer, but somebody calling you? Y'all didn't say anything about phones. I keep trying. I mean, for real.
You got to put on vibrate or something?
Well, I can't do that if you. Here,
Mics with him real quick.
hold it for 2 seconds, and I can. If you hold it for 2 seconds, I can turn that down. It's my neighbor. Yeah. There we go.
Check. 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 Check.
Right?
Check.
So I get 2 phones. That'll be from now on. That'll be your rule. Okay, real quick.
Can't hide money with 2 phones.
Do it.
Can't hide money.
Well,
You got 2 You got 2 phones.
that's how you hide the money. What do you mean?
You made the money.
And choke up on the mic some when you get it back in your hand. Don't hold it back.
Are we on pause right now?
No.
Man, that was a whole new level of fun. Choke up on the mic a little bit. I'm trying to figure out who's gonna be watching this, and then. All right, there we go. Now we should be good
Oh,
again.
we're worldwide.
We're choking up on it. Okay.
See how you're holding it hold it on the actual mic.
Right at the base
Yeah.
before
Wait
the head.
Right.
I'm not used to that. I mean, y'all all naturals.
There you go.
Have you ever had an acai bowl?
Bobby Mitchell was making those at one time.
So what's your favorite toppings on an acai bowl? And if you don't really have one, then what's your
I only
favorite?
had one.
What's your favorite post-training snack?
Right now, it's first form.
First one.
Yeah. It's like a stack you take afterwards.
Does it have a flavor?
Right now, it's fruit punch, but I just ordered some juicy watermelon.
Ooh.
I know. I hadn't tried that one, so there you go.
Who's your favorite jiu-jitsu player of all time?
Is it?
Not MMA fighter, jiu-jitsu fighter.
But he would be.
Okay, could be both.
Royce Gracie.
Is he also the favorite
Yeah,
MMA
that
fighter?
No. No, he was the one that actually opened the doorway.
Yeah.
In the very beginning. Favorite MMA fighter? That's really sketchy. Just because of the fact that there's so much of a wide span of people that I would know. So, some of them are, God knows, some of them, like Tom Sauer, that dude, and he just passed away. But that guy was, to me, he was a great guy. I mean, it was one of those where Y'all know Tom.
I don't even know who that is.
Really? So Tom Sauer had Tourette's, and he was out of Ocala, Florida. This guy, if you showed up to the fight, and I've said this a lot lately because he just passed, but if you showed up to a fight and he was there, you were going to have fun. I mean, it was, and if you were watching him fight, he was phenomenal. He had Tourette's, he did tattoos, he was an EMT. He had these tics left and right, but when the bell would ring, it was straight. And it was, look him up afterwards, some of his stuff is just hilarious. But you'd be in the back room with him during a rules meeting, and that's where the party would start. And sometimes I'd have to pull him to the side and talk to him if I was there to kind of distract him, because he would outblast sometimes and say some things, and you were like, oh, dude. But everybody knew Tom, so it was like everybody knew the situation. Just a great dude.
Was that because of his Tourette's, or was that because he was trying to lighten the mood? And like,
You know what? Honestly, you never knew. And that there was, if you
That's pretty cool. You can blame it on the Tourette's all day.
there were times that and there's a story actually recently where he did that. Somebody was telling the story about it, where he turned around and cussed someone left and right and kind of winked at him after, like winked at everybody else afterwards. Then you knew he was playing it off. God, Cam was great. Cam was one of these guys with it was a natural ability just to watch him go in there, and he could see something and 6 months later, and never really trained it, see something 6 months later and pull it out in the middle of a fight. And you were like, what just happened? And he was like, I saw it 6 months ago. It was great. So it was, it just kind of came down to stuff like that.
Did it 3 times in training.
I mean, it was like, and it would be like the showstopper.
Mm-hmm.
He was always exciting. I like the lower. This is going to sound bad to say it. I like the lower level guys because I was more connected to them.
Mm-hmm.
I knew him more personally. I've met Dan Severn and a bunch of those guys, but it was the ones that you were hanging out with the most. You kind of knew their full story. So
Let's get to your story. Where were you born?
Americus, Georgia.
What was life like growing up for you?
Well, I was told that Americus, Georgia had a lot of gnats, so they moved really quick. Lived in Griffin. I was probably maybe 4 when we moved there. Okay in school, nothing great. More or less, nothing sport-wise. I didn't really do a lot.
What about hobbies?
Trying to stay out of trouble, but getting in a lot of trouble. Was in my room a lot. In fact, recently with the daycare kids, I was juggling juggle pins, and they were like, "How'd you know how to do that?" And I got in trouble a lot in my room. So, trying to fit in, always cutting up and trying to make everybody else laugh, because it was. And once you kind of found that trigger that made everybody else laugh, you were like, "Okay, I can be the class clown." And sometimes you made a lot of sacrifices doing that, just because of the fact that you were starving for friends. It was one of those where. You found a niche in something, and so you kind of goofed around with it a lot. So, I did a little bit of martial arts when I was in 5th and 6th grade with a guy named John Chappell, and then stopped doing that, and then picked up martial arts again when I was in maybe 12th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade.
Mostly like traditional, like
Yeah,
karate
it was
or
Tang
taekwondo.
Sudo.
Tang Sudo.
And the guy who was teaching was a guy named Wes Lowe, and he was maybe 6 months younger than me, but he was a black belt since he was like 5th grade. So, he had his own school and stuff. We were in high school, so that was kind of crazy. But he was the one who said, "Hey, what are you doing later on tonight?" And I said, "Nothing much. What?" And he said, "I'm gonna go." I remember that's why I was making fun of the name. He said, "I'm gonna go watch my guy Royce." You have to think about it. Say it that way. I'm gonna watch my guy Royce Gracie fight tonight, and he had a video, and I was like, so we went to his house to watch it, and I was like, this is a train wreck.
What year was this?
God, that was
If you're in 12th grade, what year is this?
That was 92. It might have been just out of high school.
Okay, and he fought in 93, wasn't it?
Might have been 93,
February or November or something like that of 93.
And he had it on tape.
Yeah.
And we were in his room watching it, and I was like, this is insane. You're watching it going, somebody's going to die. but you were hooked on it also. Like, this is the train wreck you were waiting for the entire time. So, I don't know. I could see then what we were doing in class and stuff wasn't going to work because it was just all stand-up point fighting stuff. So that's when, we didn't have wrestling in high school when I was growing up. So, and I really wish we did because of the fact that I think I would have gravitated more towards that. And I mean, I had fun when we were doing wrestling and stuff and later on in classes.
So was that like you're at the beginning of your initial exposure to MMA and not just seeing it, but were you guys mimicking some of that stuff in Tang Soo Do class?
We would play around a little bit afterwards.
Okay.
I mean, nothing great, and we didn't know what we were doing.
Right.
So, a little while later, some people put on an event in Griffin, and I showed up to that one just to watch. I don't know if I was like security at the back door or whatever. And I thought, God, we're all going to go to jail. Like, this is...
What year was this?
Man, you're pushing buttons now. This was 97, 98.
Wow.
Because that flyer I've got right here, Rock and Brawl. This was the one, this was 98. This was the third show. Jim King did this one. It's funny. Why would you keep a flyer like that?
Yeah, like...
I mean...
For those that are on YouTube watching this, there's nothing special about this flyer. It's a piece of paper with...
that was at Club Anytime.
Some sort of shitty Hulk kind of guy that was altered so they didn't crack into some intellectual property or copyright issues. And, yeah, why would you keep a poster like this?
But where would you see that? You would see that... we wouldn't even know what that was. So the first Rock and Brawl... I didn't go to it. That was at International Ballroom. I never went to that one, but I did go to the one. It was at Club Anytime.
Okay.
And it was really weird because back then there were maybe 3 promoters maybe in Georgia, and I believe Jim King was out of Florida, and he had guys on the card. And I remember someone saying, "Hey, I want to get a T-shirt," and this is the middle of the show, and. They said, well, Jim's out in the parking lot packing up, and we went out there. It was one of the fighters. Jim King was hauling it out of the parking lot. He was done. He collected the gate door, and he was supposed to pay fighters, but was gone. So,
yeah.
So we would tour and go around to all these events and gather names and numbers of, because we didn't have the internet. There wasn't a resource back then. We would gather names and numbers.
Who's we?
Just
the guys that you train with and stuff.
Yeah, we would show up and basically say, okay, we're looking to put on another event. Mm-hmm. Can I call you guys and I might have some guys, that kind of stuff, and it would go from there. So, you would be in the back room trying to hang out and act like you were blending in, but meanwhile you're trying to gather as many names and numbers as you could. I've got a mailing list that I had. Y'all send out stuff today on the internet.
Yeah, like this is really cool. This is a letter from the Sukhothai Corporation. What's in this? Just an application?
I think that one actually is an application to actually compete.
Okay.
I've got a bunch of those, and I kept them all the time. I've got Forrest Griffin's original application when he came in, when he signed everything and that kind of stuff. And it's funny to look back at that stuff now, going, look where he is. So you just don't know when you're. Like, this is something I should have thrown away a long time ago. The average person probably would have. I'm a hoarder.
So,
how long did an event like that go on? Because if you look right there, you got kung fu, karate, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, judo, boxing.
So this
taekwondo.
was back in the day when they called it NHB.
right, and they just had all these stylists coming in,
Yeah, and
representing their set.
It was. The very beginning, it was they were purists more or less, and then they became like a cross train. These fights would last. Some of them it really came down to not really skill, but how much heart do they have?
How many bouts would be on the cards back then?
You might see 10.
Okay.
It was
That's
a
good.
solid night, really.
I think that's actually a lot better than what I'm seeing now. These events that have like 20 fights on the cards, they make me sick. Yeah. I'm like, how can anyone sit
5
there
hours.
Yeah,
Oh, well,
5,
I
6.
had that happen before.
Yeah,
and it was a total accident. I didn't mean for it to happen.
Yeah.
But I mean, so what had happened was I was putting on one actually inside a middle school in Griffin, and it was called the Gauntlet Trials, and it was a tournament, and it was an open tournament, and it was a feeder tournament to Monty Cox did one, Extreme Challenge up north, and then there was Super Brawl in Hawaii, and the winner went. So they held tournaments around. It was actually kind of a cool format. They had these tournaments around. The winner of the tournament went to the Nationals at Monty Cox event, and then the winner of the Nationals won a pro ticket to Extreme Challenge or Super Brawl in Hawaii. So I had the weight brackets, everything set up, and I kept asking Monty, well, where's the cutoff in this? He said, no, you let them come on in. And so we didn't run it.
Was this the first show that you ever did?
No.
What was the first show that you ever did?
It was the SFO2. That was, I want to say it was 98.
SFO2?
Yeah.
So
some other people did the one before, and they had a huge breakup.
And that became your show? Mm-hmm. You just absorbed it?
I teamed in with another, and it was weird. It's kind of hard to do things, I guess, with my mom always used to say, ride on many ships, but never a partnership. So it kind of gets ugly sometimes. And that wasn't really ugly, but it was almost like, wait a minute, I can continue doing this and just kind of going with it myself. And
so you had SFO2 was when you bought in or absorbed or got into
we were doing them in an armory.
Submission Fighting Open. And then also, what was your other show? Gauntlet Trials? Was that yours also?
That was the feeder show that I was talking about.
Did you have another partner for Gauntlet Trials? No, that was just your show. And the first event you ever did or were a part of promoting was SFO2. What'd you learn from it? How'd it go? Was it good?
$1 profit's better than nothing.
Did you make $1?
It was funny because I think we cleared like $400 or something like that.
Man, that's really good for your first show.
Well, you know what though? I mean, it is so funny because after a while, I never lost money doing a show, but I never made the thousands and thousands that people were doing. I couldn't pull the sponsorships people are doing now because everybody would say, "Man, as soon as I touch that, somebody's going to die in that event," and I'm tagged to it, and it was just crazy because nobody knew what it was.
Right.
Nobody knew what we had. Nobody knew what mixed martial arts was back then. We weren't doing blood tests or anything. We didn't know. I mean, it was literally show up, put up, and whatever happens, happens. We had rules.
What were the rules? Sorry.
We started off with it was open hand strikes while standing, and then straight jiu-jitsu on the ground, no strikes at all, which catered more to the jiu-jitsu crowd. Which the first show that was great because you had a lot of people who were following jiu-jitsu and they brought them down. But then it didn't cater to all aspects of what you were looking to do. So there were a couple of shows that went on like that. The first straight up NHB event, it was actually one fight. It was like the headliner super fight that we had. It was Juan Mott versus Phil Dunlap. And I remember that we weren't wearing gloves or anything. I mean, everything was optional.
Bare knuckle.
It was.
Did it have headbutts or no?
Yeah, I mean, it was.
Wow.
And Juan said, "Do we have to wear gloves?" And I said, "No, why?" And then come to find out, Juan had like a split knuckle or something, and he was really good at raking it and cutting people. And like, from what I remember, and there's no reality, there's only perception. From what I remember, I want to say Phil Dunlap got like 45 to 50 stitches in his face.
Yeah.
I mean, he had busted him up pretty hard, but he was just raking him and cutting him with it just over and over again. It was.
Now, so let's talk about Juan Mott for a second. I got a cool Juan Mott story. So
I will say this about Juan. Juan talked a lot, but he always carried tapes to back up a lot of his fights. It was amazing.
So my dad, he had some experience in kickboxing and wrestling in high school. He was a Marine, and he was really trying to get back into skydiving. He had some jumps when he was, in the Corps and stuff like that. But he was, and I think thereafter, but he was really trying to get back into it. And so we were going up to Skydive Atlanta, which was actually in Thomaston. And
You should be able to see the trees when you jump out.
and so we were in like the
Shameless plug.
we were in the hangar, and this guy, my dad was talking about blah blah blah, and then this guy, they were saying that he was a mixed martial arts fighter, NHB fighter, whatever. So my dad goes over, just starts talking to him. I go over, and he has a scrapbook. Like you were saying, like he talks a lot, but he could always back it up with the tapes. Well, he had a scrapbook, and we were flipping through it, and he was like him fighting in Japan and all that stuff. And Juan Mott was on Pride 1, the very first Pride show that there ever was, and that was in like 99 or 2000. But this guy that I met, I was very into MMA. Like I loved it. Yeah. I didn't even know that shows were happening in Georgia like that, like what you were doing at the time. It was probably around the time that you had first gotten exposed to it or were promoting, like 98, something like that, 97. But I met him in that hangar, and he taught me how to do an arm bar. You know, in the hangar, it was carpeted in the hangar.
Yeah. I've been in that hangar.
Yeah. So he taught me how to do an arm bar. That's my cool little Juan Mott story. I was like a 12-year-old kid, you know, and he was like generous with his time. I bugged him while he was trying to pack his chute, and he came over and he showed me how to do an arm bar. That was pretty cool.
So he was packing shoots, and he was like, "Oh yeah, man, let me show you my scrapbook." And he just like had it under his arm.
He was talking with some of the instructors. He didn't work there, but like the instructors were talking to him, and
Did he have to walk back to his car and get his scrapbook, or
he already had it. He already had it.
He's like, man, I'm like, show this shit.
That was it. I mean, Juan really, he talked a bunch of smack, and if he didn't supply that, you would swear he was lying.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like whatever, and all of a sudden he would whip out videos or pictures, and you were like, it's real. I mean,
this scrapbook had cool shit in it, man. It was really cool. And for a kid like me, like he was the first fighter I ever met.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
Like a pro MMA fighter.
Yeah.
NHB fighter. And I met that guy, and he actually talked to me. I was like, that's so cool. And I didn't train martial arts till many years later, but like that when I look back on it, that was really cool. First fighter I ever met was generous with his time, didn't say bug off kid or anything like that. And I know that he's not like a superstar or anything like that, like John Jones or something like that. But it was just cool to have somebody like, you know, they probably get bugged about that shit all the time, but he was happy to, you know, talk about it.
Well, it's funny. He was a guy that like literally, and people who are listening to this who've been around Juan can vouch for that. You would have to pry him out of the back room. He'd been to Pride. I mean, he'd been over in big fights.
Yeah.
In Griffin, Georgia, you would have to pry him out of the locker room and say, dude, come on, you've got to come on. And he would just, like he was ready to throw up or whatever in the back. He was freaking out. And he was supposed to fight Sean Kilgus on one of my shows. And he
just never made the walk.
He came out, and I mean, supposedly he ate like a bucket of fried chicken, like that afternoon, and couldn't make the walk out on that one.
Okay.
But when he was fighting Phil Dunlap, if you watch the video, the song I think plays twice, maybe on a third time, and people in the back going, "Dude, you've got to come out." But he was like an old car. I said the statement today, like an old car. Once you get him cranked up, he's good to go.
Yeah.
But just getting him out there was the problem, and so it was sitting in the back, and then when he came out, I don't know what happened, flip of the switch. But somebody who had been in the big shows in Japan, he's in a bar in Griffin, Georgia at 3:00 in the afternoon, and he won't come out and fight.
Oh man. Well, looking back on it, I'll have to go like watch him fight, but I can't even remember if he was a good fighter or not. You know, like I never saw him fight live.
He called a bunch of slack. He fought Bustamante. I'll probably butcher that name.
Murillo?
Yes.
Bustamante?
Bustamante. See, there you go.
Bustamante.
He fought in Mars.
Which was the martial arts reality super fighting one-off show that happened in Georgia somewhere. Where was it? Alabama. And that was where we had Oleg Taktarov fight Renzo Gracie. And
the names are on that card.
Renzo Gracie knocked out Oleg Taktarov with the up kick in that show.
So if you watch, I know, right?
Why do I know that?
So if you go back and watch that, everybody said that Juan took a dive on that fight. But if you are you pulling it up?
No.
I was like, man, that was quick. If you listen and watch that, he got hit solid. He was on the ground. You couldn't see the hit, but you could hear the head bounce off the canvas, and he was done. So and he called a lot for that one, but he was fighting a gamer. I mean, it was one of those where
Dude, Murillo went on to become the UFC world champion. Murillo Bustamante became UFC world champ. I mean, there's no shame in getting jacked up by and he was jiu-jitsu world champ. World champ, not like good black belt. No, he was black belt world champion, became UFC world champion. No, not many people have made that level of accomplishment.
he was a gamer.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So me and Bubby, when we were talking about like the NHB days versus the MMA days, it was a cool little cast. If you're listening, you can go back and listen to that one. But okay, so
I was like, man, that brought back a lot of memories.
So what were we were talking about like the rules, and you said like you guys were starting off pancreation. You had a couple like true NHB fights. What were the time per rounds? Were there rounds? What was it like?
It was maybe you might want to call it 2 rounds. You had like most of them were
A 20 with an overtime 10.
Yeah, and literally like Cam had a guy named Damien who was fighting, and they were both just gassed, right? And they're within arms reach of each other. It was open hand strikes only, and they're both doubled over, with their hands on their knees, standing to look at each other, and one will reach up and slap one in the face, and then come back down, breathe. And the other one, it was like a slap fight sometimes. I mean, it just got to be
like pro wrestling.
It was crazy. I mean, but it really got down to, and I've said this right. If you have 2 guys with, I'm not saying Damon didn't have any skills, but if you had 2 guys with no skills at all, it came down to who's got the most heart. Yeah, I mean,
see,
who can dig?
I think that I was made for more for that day of fighting, like the 20-minute time limit or unlimited. I think that I could really thrive in that type of fighting. The 5 minutes is basically a sprint, and look at this body. It's not made to be an athlete. And I think that the longer the time limit was, or the fewest rules there was, no stand-ups from the ref. I think that if I fought in that type of rule set in that day, I would have really thrived.
The problem with it, though, is that those rules would not have allowed the sport to thrive.
I understand.
Because everybody's going, stand them up, ref.
Right.
Because everybody wants to see the back.
And the excitement, right. And that's what's led to the evolution of what we have today and becoming the fighters that we've become. But if I could just teleport back in time is what I'm saying. Like
it was great because you would see some people who were just almost playing possum for a while. And just kind of riding,
right?
And you would see the other kind
traps and tricks and things like that.
You would see him kind of just dump and lose it, and all of a sudden the other guy was like, "Gotcha! I was waiting for you to do it." So it was a lot of games like that you would see. It was interesting, and like I said, we didn't know what we had. We were just going off of whatever kind of rules we could find, what sounded good. We didn't know if it was even legal at the time. So that's how crazy it was. And I had friends that were cops in Griffin, and they showed up one day. Right as the doors were open, and they just gave me this straight look like,
it ain't happening.
Yeah, and I was like, "Are you?" And they said, "I'm teasing." I'm like, "Dude, that's not even funny right now." Like, but and me being a jokester was
this pre 2000?
Oh yeah.
What was the atmosphere like at the shows? Like, first off, who was at the shows? Have you ever been to an indie pro wrestling event?
No.
Okay, well, I'll explain it to you real quick. The only people that are really there are about 30 local people that are mostly comprised of the family of the fighters or wrestlers, or they are the wrestlers themselves. And that's about it. That's like your indie local show. What was it like, and what were the people that attended these events like, and what happened? Just tell me the atmosphere of your general gauntlet trials or SFO, early SFO 2000 and earlier.
It was. It really was. We were doing them in the Armory in Griffin. It was a big tank right up there. And
what was the crowd like?
We might have maybe 150 there. Wow. That was on a good day, but it was also because of the fact that the rules catered to Jacare and those guys in Atlanta. So
right.
They would bring down, like they would load
like Philip Smith, Steve Hedden.
Load the cards up.
Yeah.
And. Of course, you wanted. It was kind of a catch-22. You wanted to cater to them because they would bring the crowd, but on the same note, you didn't want to cater directly to them and let it be obvious.
This is a pretty cool photo, guys. It's Rory Singer fighting some other guy Rory went on to
Find some other guy.
Roy Singer, co-founder of Hardcore Gym, which produced Brian Bowles and Forrest Griffin, and he himself was on Ultimate Fighter season 3, I believe, and went on to fight a couple times in the UFC. Black belt, and had a gym long time in Georgia. It's a pretty cool photo. He's got a lot of cool photos here.
A majority of the crowd would be fighters who just were not competing that day. I mean, that's where you're going to get the word out, right?
Right.
Or it's going to be, where did you get flyers out? Where could you do it? And it was so messed up back then because of the fact that you wanted to blast it from every billboard, but you were also scared. Like I said, we didn't know if it was legal or not. Like there was no athletic commission. It was just called the boxing commission. And technically speaking, we weren't boxing.
Right.
So it was.
Yeah, you guys
We
governed.
were testing the waters.
You guys governed your own selves, and I remember like fighting on your shows and just in the Georgia scene, like the ISCF, the International Sport Combat Federation, was used as a sanctioning body. And what did they provide when you went through the ISCF? Anything?
They provided a ranking system.
Rule set, the 4-minute rounds, or who made that?
They didn't really have the rule set at the time. There you go.
World champ Forrest Griffin, looking like a chunky monkey here.
They gave you, and it wasn't even.
Yeah, that's cool.
It wasn't even that you got.
They supplied like a platform for the promoter, like this many EMT or doctor, or they didn't tell you how to run a show.
No,
so what was the
back then.
benefit? Just to have a
more or less you had
ranking
a sanctioned
system?
body where you could rank your fighters also.
Okay.
Back then.
Yeah.
They actually, they moved a little bit with who has to have, who can.
This looked like
There you
most
go.
of the shows that I fought on early on.
There's your crowd right there.
We got a lot of mullets.
It was back in the day, man.
Is your aunt there?
Look at this, dude.
But at least
there's a kid. He's got
medical.
some Tommy Hilfiger jeans. They look like they're about the size of Jinkos over there.
That was it, though. The Fred Durst look.
Yeah, it was. I think I paid $150 for the venue, and then I got $25 back if I cleaned it up. So I would go through with like a leaf blower.
Yeah.
And I will say, like the fighters that I used to manage for us for a short time, and Rory and all those guys, they would also help set the ring up or break it down afterwards. Like it was.
That was just like pro wrestlers. They do that.
It was like really cool if
Yeah.
you think about it. It was like, oh yeah, we'll hang out and we'll do this, and we were running 4-man tournaments at the time.
Yeah.
The majority typically was 4-man tournaments, and I think the winner got like $200 or $100 or something. The other ones didn't get anything.
Pro.
So why?
So that's the gray area that it was back then, right?
Yeah. That you're,
You didn't know. I mean, it was like,
Yeah.
pro fighter now or not?
Why do it though? What was the push for you? Like,
Yeah.
hey, I want to put this shit out there for everybody.
yeah. What was fulfilling?
Because it was really cool. When I saw it, it was just like I said originally, it was a train wreck. I was like, wait a minute, this is a train wreck. How many people did I really see get hurt in that first UFC? And it was on a different level.
Plenty.
Yeah, but it was. So you didn't have the same rules though. We had open hand strikes.
Mm-hmm.
It was simmered down a little bit. It did become. I was asked later on. You only made like $500 on the show. Was it worth it? All the time and effort and sweat you put into it, and it was like, well, I didn't lose money, and I kind of had fun watching it. Later on, as the shows progressed, I didn't hardly see any of the shows I would put on. I mean, I was.
Because you were working.
I
them.
was, I was everywhere, and because I've always had an issue of. It sounds weird. I've always had an issue of trusting people as far as, dude, if this goes sour, it's on me. So I need you to do this in the back room. And if they didn't do it, it would come back on me anyway.
Right.
So then I would load up on how much caffeine I could get in that day, and I would just run around full speed. And I was doing the back door stuff. I mean, you're checking, like literally you're running around trying to close all the doors at the venue because fighters are trying to let their friends in the back doors. You're traying fighters up, everything across the board. We've got a guy real quick who needs stitches. Cam had to get stitches real quick, but we didn't have any lidocaine. And Cam put in his mouthpiece, and the doctor's sewing him up real quick. And I was like, I want to watch this, but you were running around 100 miles an hour. afterwards they would say, "Was it a good fight?" And I was like, "Dude, I don't even really have a clue." Did you have fun? Is all I know.
Like, what did you get? What was fulfilling about it for you when you didn't see the show yourself, some of them. So, like, what did you get out of it? What was fulfilling? Why did you do it? What was your purpose in doing it?
It was something that, like, I wasn't even training really at the time. It was something I was really enjoying. I was 20 years old, and I was like, wait a minute, this could go somewhere. I've got a ground foot on something. You would go to other shows or you see other shows. Like, I remember going to Jamie Levine's show he did in Rome, Georgia.
WEF.
Yeah, Brad Kohler. Brad Kohler
fought in
got
UFC.
punted by Babalu.
Those guys both fought in UFC.
They fought each other up there, and I remember one of them kicked. I got Babalu. That happened in Florida. So Babalu kicked Brad Kohler, and like big Brad was.
So Brad, there's this like famous UFC highlight of this guy Brad Kohler, who I just called the steroid guy for a long time.
Big dude.
Hey, he's got like traps that go past his ears. They go all the way to his temples, and he just straight up throws a right hand and knocks some other jabroni completely out cold. And I don't know like if he ever fought again in the UFC or not, but that's where that guy came from. And
Brad was on the ground. Babalu jumped up real quick and kicked him in the head, and Brad's whole body moved like 3 feet, and we were like, "Oh my God, that guy just died."
He might die. Yeah.
But
hey, want to see a dead body?
This was in Rome, Georgia, right? And the place was packed, and I was like, "This is where I want to be. I want to try to get it to that level."
Right.
So, I mean, I was trying to run a business also at the same time. So, like I said, I was trying to hustle sponsorships. Anything and everything I could do. I was trying to talk to pizza places. Local mom and pop pizza places, can I put my flyer on your pizza box as it goes out? And I'll sit here and tag them all day long if you let me. We didn't have the internet.
No, I was about to say what
Facebook marketing
but that's like on the ground, pounding the pavement.
It was
marketing,
can I put these flyers in your gas station?
I credit you to even when we did have the internet, you were still doing that type of work, getting out there, shaking the hands, talking with the people.
You had to,
and it was fun also. Like that, I think that one thing when I saw you do it, you'd bring us and we'd hang out with you while you did it.
Oh yeah, we
just had a good time
one night and we were flagging cars at the time. Yeah.
We go to the Hooters or we go to the Locos, or remember we went out to. Did you go to, or did you just send us to Elko? Remember when we?
Oh no, I went to Elko. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I had them announce it on the.
We were handing out flyers and stuff at Elko during the truck that like they had run the trucks.
Yeah. Mud bogging at its finest. Who else is going to love fights?
Yeah, so he would go to these places and actually like talk with the people, the patrons of the businesses, talk with the manager, making sure it was cool.
I always was never the promoter. Whenever I was out, and the reason why, you'd always have that guy. Man, can I fight on this card? How do I? And yeah, dude, contact this guy right here, because you would wind up being just in a wormhole with this guy who's never going to show in the first place, but he wants to talk about 15, 20 minutes about how Billy badass he is, and he's good to fight right now. And it was like, if you're serious, call this guy right here, me, and call him up, and I'm sure he could probably put you on the card, and they would never call. And I learned that the hard way, because I got tied up a couple of times in a parking lot, just going, God, I'm dying here.
That's a great photo.
Man, this guy right here, do you know who that is? Kent Hensley. Kent Hensley.
I've seen him before.
He, I think he's in Holland now, doing the weed. He was.
Bless him.
Did you ever hear the fight that happened between Kelly Williams and Kevin Jacobs? And it was inside of school. It was basically, this is what happened. This is some of the old school stuff, and I've got the video at home. So, like Juan Mott, I can prove it. So Kelly Williams moved here from Florida, and he talked a bunch of smack, and he was all like, who's the baddest guy in Georgia? I'll fight him right now, kind of deal.
And he was a jacked up jiu-jitsu fighter.
He was and so, but really he had nothing to lose. So here's the deal: talking to him later on, he admitted to me. He said, if I beat whoever the guy is, I'm king of the mountain off the bat. If I lost to him, okay, I can kind of blend in a little bit with some people and kind of work my way up. He was supposed to fight Kent Hensley, and Kevin Jacobs was at Home Depot, working at Home Depot, and they called and said, "Hey, dude, Kent Hensley didn't show up." And Kevin Jacobs says, it was at Kevin's school, and Kevin said, "I'm on the way." Clocks out for lunch, goes to the school. They wound up tussling it out, and it was brutal. Kevin Jacobs kicked Kelly Williams off the bat, and Kelly said he never felt his leg the entire rest of the fight. That he kicked him that hard. It was just, and then afterwards the mouthpiece came out. And it was a spiking of the forehead with the mouthpiece kind of deal.
Hell
it
yeah!
It used to be that way, right? I mean, it used to be, and we have to say those things now. Working with the commission, you cannot throw your mouthpiece at someone else or in the crowd afterwards, and that kind of, because it got to be. Where was that poster with Cam and Doug Justice? That was a mouthpiece throwing night.
Wow.
That was just brutal, and people would pick. I mean, It used to be that there was only like 4 or 5 schools. There was Jacare, there was Tiger Academy, Obaki had a school, Team Eagle. There were a few other ones around, but those were your main ones you were pulling from. So they would really, sad to say, we kind of pitted them against each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because everybody wants to be who's the bad boy in the block today.
Yeah,
and so they would put him in there. Jacare was really well known for. Is he still trained? I need to know before I say this. He wanted to put 2 people in every weight, in every bracket. And a lot of times what would happen was, and I watched some phenomenal fights, but if they came down to those 2 guys, his 2 guys got to the finals, which was pretty much going to happen. One would just bow out to the other.
Right. Just like in jiu-jitsu.
And you were like, dude, the crowd didn't come to see the bow out. They came to see this, happen. That's why I love tournament fights so back in the day.
Yeah.
Because if you had 2 guys, if you had a 4-man tournament and you had a guy walk out and he won his fight, and another guy walk out on his next one and he won his fight, the crowd now has gotten to know those 2 guys.
They're invested.
So when they see them compete later on that night, it's like, this is going to be a fight.
I fought in 4 tournaments like that.
They're great.
And like
They're amazing.
the crowd, when you walked out for your second fight, it always felt like was way bigger than when you walked out for your first fight. Because like Matt was saying, you're way more invested as a fan.
Which tournaments did you fight in?
I fought on the Total Velocity in the Valley. That my first 2 amateur fights were fought the same night.
That was Alabama.
Yeah, Phoenix City. No, it was. Yeah, it was supposed to be in Columbus, but we had to go across Phoenix City when the venue person canceled. Yeah, and then I fought when I lost to Daiso on your show. Mm-hmm. And then I fought the King of the Ring and fought twice that time. And then I was yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
I was waiting for the King of the Ring.
Like that.
Look at it. Boom, boom.
Like and then I ended up fighting again on your show where I beat that like steroided thug guy up.
Oh,
Anthony.
I remember that. Yeah.
But then I was supposed to fight a second time that night, and Charles Nutt was on the opposite end of the bracket, and he like broke his hand or something, and we ended up fighting later on that show in Augusta, but we were supposed to fight later that night. So me and Bubby, you ended up bringing us in the ring because Philip Peterson broke his hand or something like
you
that
hated
too.
doing that too. Like,
Yeah, so you brought us in there like our champions are Cole and Bubby for our weight classes or whatever, you know.
You didn't know how to, present it to the crowd. He was like, what do you do with that?
Yeah, but so here's a cool little story. I jotted this down for a note for you.
So you prepped.
So the first show that I ever attended live, and I guess you
might have the flyer to it. Hold on.
Gauntlet Trials 1 in Macon, at the Macon City Auditorium. Okay, we got to. I mean, this has to be it. Yeah, yeah. Look at that. Look at this program.
Look, so
Like,
so I would
The
go
program was $2, or was $2 to get in?
No, I would actually try to sell the program, try to make some
the
kind of money
official
back.
program is $2. What? Okay, and this is
It's got
shoot
the
fighting.
rules.
What are the rules in shoot fighting, and what will you see? And it's got Macon Muscle, which later in that same building, Bubby opened up
That's where Rush was.
Rush MMA, and Bubby worked at Macon Muscle for a little bit. Starcadia, that was like the place in Macon that had the Family Fun Center, you know.
It's still there. I would love to be able to snatch that place up and open a gym there. That would be.
Yeah.
You would have a running track, there's a go-kart track, and everything else.
So that was the first show that I ever attended live, was that show. And then the show that made me go, I have got to really, really do this, was I attended Submission Fighting Open 9 at Rockabilly's, and I wasn't even training then. So that was in like April. It was a birthday. Hey, it was a birthday present for myself. We went to that. That's 9. Yes, that's the one. Yes, the Bibb County Brawl, and that was at Rockabilly's, and that was the one where Rand Weathers fought the guy that could have probably been the world champ, Justin Dunn. He was a hardcore gym fighter, and Rand had braces, a mohawk, and gi pants,
And white boy tattooed on his back.
and he gets in there and fights this stud Justin Dunn, and they're fighting, and Dunn shoots a double leg, and I'm sitting like front row, and I get hit with like sweat, and then there's blood on my pants. And I was just like, yeah! Like, it was like, I've got to get in there and do that. And so this was in April. Like I said, it was a birthday present to myself going over to see this show. And I ended up 7 months later, I'd had my first fight. So I was not training. I attended his show just to go watch because I knew it was something I'm going to get into this. You'll see. Yeah. And then I went to his show. It was so awesome. And that kind of, I guess, catapulted me. And 7 months later, I had already started the gym, started with the gym with Academy of the Fighting Arts, and had already fought. And 7 months later, fought my first 2 fights. Isn't that cool?
The one on this, the one with this
Damn, kept the inserts and everything.
This is a different show, maybe.
It was.
Yeah, this is just an advertisement for our school.
So this right here, the funny thing about this one was, this right here was the poster that was used when we were passing these out, right? Originally, this fight was supposed to be inside. It's a church now, down by Starcadia. That's Matt
Corsi and Cliff Hagerman. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So this was supposed to be, you know that church that's right down from Starcadia? It's a huge venue.
Okay.
They do inside. They have like
I don't know what you're talking
soccer
about.
Soccer and all this kind of stuff. It was a sports complex for a
Okay.
short time.
Yeah.
It was also, so I started passing these out. This is one of those moments. They contacted me and said, and I had already rented it, put money down, everything, explained to them what was going on. They saw this right here, and they called me up and said, we got to have a meeting. This is not what you told us about. And I said, what are you talking about? Well, the guy's not wearing gloves. And I said, okay, they're wearing gloves now. This is the posed picture. And that's not what it's it's showing. And I said, well, it's got fire and
lightning bolts.
I said, we're not going to throw that in the crowd either. But I mean, so they want to. So Cam dresses up in a suit for this meeting, and was going to play my lawyer. And
oh my gosh,
dude! So, and if he listens to this, he's going to be doubled over laughing big time with this. He had on glasses and everything, like he played the role. And we sat in there, we listened, and they handed us their terms of contract. It was like, we see any more of this right here, you're thrown out, all this kind of stuff. And we were like literally, I looked at it, and Cam said, I looked over, and he looked like the guy from Total Recall, where he just wasn't getting auctioned anymore. Like your face was turning beet red, and you were just going crazy. And they were basically kicking us out. I literally had to flip venues, and I had like a week, maybe a week and a half. And I called Mike Brown, who was running Rockabilly's at the time, and he was like, "Come on in, we'll bring you in." He charged a little bit more than what I was wanting, but I didn't have anything else to do. And we locked it in real quick and got in there. But
and it was a cool show. There wasn't too many fights. I want to say there was like 6 fights that night or something like that. But for me, it was the really perfect event. I really had a great time watching that.
So brought Toebreaker into the gym.
Toebreaker?
Yeah.
Who's Toebreaker?
I mean, I hated you when you came in the gym. So he showed up, and here's the reason why. Wait a minute. He would come into the gym, and he would wear his dad's scrubs.
Yeah, the medical scrubs. Those were the greatest pants to train in.
No. Fingers and toes, everything else would get locked up in that stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, somebody's got to tell him. Looking back at it, it should have been me going, hey, man, you don't need to wear that.
Somebody's got to tell him.
Yeah. You're always trying to dust it off on someone else. It was like, this little kid, he's wiry. He's all over the place. He's got these scrubs on.
His knees and shins and elbows are all over the place.
He was like, Toebreaker.
Toebreaker.
It was rough.
So,
I remember that.
Yeah, well.
I remember that.
It's the leadership.
Trey Brown was in there. You were friends with Trey.
Yeah.
Trey Brown was in there.
He's the one that brought me in.
The story that I remember was he showed up at Locos with like a black eye or something.
For me, it was the Bagel Bakery. And he had like a black eye and a half. He had a purple eye and he had like the yellow eye over here. Like where a black eye had already gone away, you know.
My God, the Bagel Bakery.
And he said that he trained mixed martial arts, and I knew what it was already because I was already a geared up fan, you know.
I'm trying to figure out, was it really a mixed martial arts then, or was it NHB then?
Well, he said the word oh yeah, I trained mixed martial arts. That's what he said, and because the term had already been about, and so I was like MMA. I said it just like that, and he was like, you know what that is? I go, oh man, big fan. I watch Judo, I watch Pride, I watch UFC. You know, I got the T1 landline. I download all the stuff at Mercer that I can, download. And he was like, you need to come train. And I was like, all right, cool. And I went and trained, and then I had a great time. I did it for like the 2 times that week, the Tuesday and Thursday. And I told Trey, I was like, all right, I just got kicked out of Mercer. I'm under a lot of scrutiny. Let me finish this first semester at Macon State, and I promise I'll come back. And you know when people say that you're never.
Oh, yeah, they're done.
So I literally finished that first semester, got out in May. So your event was in April. May is when the semester for college ends. It's December or January through May. And I started in May. And then in November I fought.
Where was the gym located then when you came in?
It was Conditioning Unlimited. Okay. So it was next to the Steinmart or whatever.
Yeah, Orange Theory's there now.
Yeah.
Awkward silence. Go ahead.
Yeah. And no, and that's just how I got my start was, Trey brought me in.
Back then, though, we like you said earlier, you were asking me these questions, the gut check round. We didn't drill moves and that kind of stuff.
I remember I was trying to tell him that.
We literally we were sitting there, and it was a long. I mean, it was a grinder night sometimes, and sometimes it was just boys' night out and let's hang out and talk.
All right, dog. What y'all want to do? Like he'd just say it just like that, and it's like,
and
they'd be like, let's roll or let's spar or whatever, and he'd be like, let's go. He's like, and he'd go like, anything y'all want to learn tonight? And then nobody knew because like. He was the leader. It's his job to tell us what we need to know. And so nobody'd say anything. And then and that's where he goes, oh, hell, I guess you're all black belts then. Yeah. He can say, oh, hell, or shit, guess y'all are all black belts. Nobody needs to learn anything, And it's like he'd give you 10 seconds to give a response when he'd go, all right, guys, what do y'all want to learn tonight? And it'd just be crickets because you're like, I've never even thought that. You mean I can say what I want to learn? How do I say what I want to learn if I don't know what it is?
Yeah.
And then he'd be like, oh, hell, guess y'all are all black belts then. Let's go ahead and roll then, or let's spar. That'd be every fucking night, man.
You would. We'd play music and just roll all night long. And it was 7, 8 o'clock, and we'd go to about 11.
Yeah, and in Griffin, sometimes 1 or 2. Because like you said, I was telling him I'd train till I could not crawl across the room to get to a Gatorade. I had to have it brought to me, and then we train that. And then what we would do is like once you get done at like 11:30, what are you gonna do? You're gonna talk. Yeah. We're gonna talk, man. And we're the boys yeah. We're gonna train from 7:30 to 11:30. Then we're gonna talk till 1, and then you're gonna ride back from Griffin to Macon or Warner Robins, depending on where and then I'm gonna get up at 5:30 in the morning to go to work at the Bagel Bakery. Falling asleep 3 times on the way to work on the interstate. That's a grinder every day.
In a hatchback.
Yeah.
Did you ever say Green Day Part 2 on it?
No. I had a Green Day sticker though. So what are some important takeaways that you got from being a promoter? So because right now I'm sure that we do have somebody out there that is listening that they're thinking, I don't want to be a fighter, but man, I really am excited about martial arts in my area, and I'd like to maybe put on an event. What's some advice that you can give or some important takeaways that you got from I think I had it down here. There was 12 SFOs and 4 gauntlet trials.
What I'm seeing more of now when I'm attending the fights now is, if you're going back to grassroots stuff, the more local you keep it, the more crowd you're going to have. Mm-hmm. I work with the athletic commission now, and I'll go to boxing shows, and sometimes they'll have so and so from Kentucky's fighting so and so from South Carolina. Okay, well that fight didn't bring anybody local in, and nobody from South Carolina is really going to be driving down to buy that ticket. So the more local you can keep it, unless you've got some popular name coming in, there was a guy, Jared Williams, who had a great. He was building up fighters left and right, and he basically had a following on those direct fighters. Put yourself in the fighter's position. I mean, you want to treat everybody like you want to be treated as well. To me, that's one of the big things as well.
No, that's super important.
If you can do that, I think you'll keep the respect from the fighters.
As a fighter, that's very important for me. And
Yeah.
I think I want to do a show, but not right now because this is so hard as it is, or not hard. It's just time consuming. But one thing that's very important to me from fighting on a show is just to be respected. It's like if the promoter really doesn't have the money, then they better have something, and that something should be respect. And so I think that goes a long way. When a fighter wants to come back and fight for you again and again and again. If you don't have the money's great, by the way, if you have it. But if you don't have the money to pay a fighter good, then treat them good.
Yeah, it was weird because of the fact that a lot of the fighters I became really good friends with, and so and because of that, I knew a fighter, a fight promoter who fought and he put on a show and the fighter won, and when the fighter went to get paid. The fight promoter said, well, your manager or whatever owes me money, so take it out on him. And it was like, that has nothing to do with what just happened.
Right. Man, that's so grimy.
So that was John D'Angelo.
Okay.
And Jeremy Brick was the fighter. And it was Juan Mott was the one who trained Jeremy Brick. Jeremy Brick was 15, lying about his age, fighting grown adults, and beating ass.
100. Respect.
Amazing. You've got to just keep it real. I look at the pictures and stuff when I was promoting. I didn't dress up in little snazzy, outfits, that kind of stuff. I usually wore jeans and a t-shirt.
And a t-shirt.
Yeah, I didn't want to. I'm not that guy. I don't have all that. So
And an earpiece.
that was just to make it look like I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
No, that would be about it. I mean, a good leader is going to get in the trenches with you also. So, everybody would break down the ring, and I'd be in there as much as possible trying to help them out as well. They would come to me going, man, did I fight? It was weird because someone would just get beat up, and they would come to me going, hey, man, was it a good fight? Did you enjoy it? And I was like, dude, you look like hell. But I didn't see the fight. But as long as you had fun, we're good. That happened quite a bit, and you would have just slugfest stuff.
Nope, you look great.
I don't know. When are you gonna do a show?
Dude, I don't know.
The biggest issue really when the boxing commission changed their name to the athletic commission is when I think it weeded out a lot of people. Like I said, I was doing good to clear.
Yeah.
$400, some $500 sometimes. I actually did sell out the Macon Auditorium once, and I had people, lined up around the side. And
Hey, fire marshal trying to shut the shit down. Me and
amazing.
Bubby were talking
that
about that.
really cool.
That was really cool.
That was also really scary for me.
Yeah.
That was not like a date that I went home going, wow, that was a good night. I was like, what is going to happen is going to be bad. You've got way too much going on right now. Those
2 SFOs I fought on were awesome. And then the one I didn't fight on that Micah fought on and my dad fought on, I was in Florida. I just saw the video and I was like, man, that's packed too.
Is that it?
No, I fought on that one.
Oh, there you are.
That was the one I lost.
Oh yeah, Hulk hands.
Yeah.
They used to make noise. Clink
When you pound them together.
Look, there's
So-
old Timmy.
So
Yeah.
that was my rule also when I was managing fighters. Well, not my rule. That was what I always said. Was you can't promise me that you can you're going to win the fight. You can't promise me anything. But you're going to walk out to the cage or the ring, make a scene there. That's where you're going to grab the audience and that kind of stuff. We had Scott Harper walking out with all kinds of crazy stuff. I always wanted Cam to walk out. We were going to carry him in a casket. I said, no matter you have to commit
Undertaker
to it.
style.
Yeah, I said you have to commit to that, right? Win or lose, unless the doctor has to tend to you. Win or lose, you roll right back out, get in the casket, we carry you back out. And
Yeah. Or if you
Could not get him to do it.
if
I
you
wanted
lose,
little
if you lose,
people and-
we could actually pull you into the casket.
Oh my God! Yeah, it was. Because you want a little bit of mix of that wrestling because that's where they're grabbing those characters. So you're going to make that character that way. But
So, like, when I got on board,
that's Andy Foster right there.
who's now the athletic commissioner for California. He's a great fighter. When I got
You
on,
think I'm gonna win this fight?
yeah, I know you are by armbar,
80 ball armbar.
armbar from guard.
That was always it.
So, like when I got on board, you were training, but not a lot. Like I'd see you, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and sometimes just Tuesday, or sometimes just Thursday, or sometimes you'd go a month without training, but then you'd train for a month. You're just like in and out, but always part of the team. But you didn't train like a fighter, but you weren't a fighter. And then when I moved to Top Team in December of 2005, you decided to fight in 2006.
I didn't decide to. It was an accident.
Okay, well, tell us about that. Like, what prompted you because you'd been involved in promoting these events since the 90s, and you'd seen all these fights and these fighters kind of come up through, and you never really trained like one, but then you fight. What was going on?
So looking back at it now, the only thing I have not done is I would not be the announcer or the referee. Besides that, I've done everything else in the fight game you could think of. What happened with that was I got a phone call. I was managing a bunch of guys. Got a phone call from a promoter in Louisiana, and they wanted to know, what was his name? Bobby Friend. And so they said, hey, Bobby wants to fight your guy Trey Brown, and I kind of knew, you kind of knew like the game of who was who and that kind of stuff, and I knew Bobby was walking around. You pull intel and that kind of stuff. Bobby was probably walking around about 190.
I was about to say a good 200.
And I said, can Bobby make 170? Because that's where Trey was fighting. I remember making that statement. And the promoter said, well, he's kind of calling Trey out. I figured that they could just meet at a catch weight or whatever. And I said, well, I managed Bubby Mitchell at 130. If Bobby calls him out, they're going to meet like at 150? What is that? How does that work? And so honestly, what had happened was I had a couple of cocktails that night while I was right before the phone call had happened, and I was playing a bluff. And
okay.
I said, I'll tell you what, you just tell Bobby I'll fight him and let me know what happens, and kind of got off the phone, right? To me, the conversation was over. Damn it, man! The next day, the promoter calls me up and says, "All right, man, you're good to go." And I was like, that's really what happened. So I said, all right, I've got two stipulations to it. I said, A, I get to walk out second, and B, I get to play my own music. I don't know. I mean, it sounded good, right? And so he was like, good, you're good to go. And I was like, damn it. So I started training, right? Because I was kind of like, I was trying to bluff someone, and then I felt that I'm just going to get bluffed back. So I was training, which really put me in a different perspective with the whole fight game, really, because you watch it left and right, and you're looking at these guys, and you're going, okay, you got like another round, and you go, that kind of stuff. So I was training. I'd cut weight from, I probably had 2 to 3 months to train for it, maybe right in that area. So I probably cut from, it was like 220 to 185. Like I was trimming it down, that kind of stuff. And I wasn't as much, but I was left and right in making 100 miles an hour.
So Cam only came down on Tuesday, Thursday.
Yeah, but
so what were you doing?
I want to say that somebody else was running there also during those times.
Okay. Yeah, because by then we were at Wilkerson School.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay. Yeah, so you guys probably had training all the time.
So, and I said this recently because somebody was asking me about it. I was training with like a new guy every round, doing like 10 rounds a night.
Yeah.
And you would do like a fireman's carry across the ring and across the room and drop them, and then you start working someone else.
Yeah.
And, like you felt like an animal.
Crazy conditioning.
My game is on. Like this is where the conversation I had the other day about, we were talking about marijuana being a performance enhancer.
Okay.
And I truly believe it is.
I do too.
And the reason why is so
For some
So
people.
let me back up. We get to we're fixing to leave. My mom finds out I'm going to fight. She was reading a letter from a pen pal, and she says, and I was trying to keep it from my mom, and she said, so she was trying to get me to eat and stuff. She was always like, hey, try some of this cake, and I was like, well, no, I'm good. And she was like, why won't you eat the cake? And I was like, I was just kind of working on my girlish figure. So she was trying to see what I was doing, right? So she finally admitted that she had read a letter and she knew that I was going to be fighting. And she said, do you want someone to sew you up when you get busted up, or do you want me, who's a nurse who used to do needlepoint, to sew you up when you get busted up? And I'm thinking, okay, well, you've already got me busted up. So get in the car, let's go. So we all wound up going down there. Scott Harper went with me also. And we kind of had fun with it. We walked in to the scales, and I remember looking at Blue was there. Blue was there, and Scott Harper was there. And I looked at Scott, and I said, why are you here? And he was like, man, you're my boy, and I'm going to come here and watch you go. And he said, I'm here to do anything you wanted me to do. And I said, cool, hold me up. So we went walking in the room, and for the weigh-ins, and I just trying to put on the biggest show of, like, I was just dried out and done, and I was good. But and I was just having fun.
Yeah.
And so I'm tucked down, and they called out and they're holding me up like I'm about to fall out, and they carry me up to the scales and that kind of stuff, and I get on the scales and I make weight, and I look over at James Corbett was the ISCF person for the fight, and he was doing it, and I kind of looked at him and winked, and so then the next day. I know, but you get behind me like that. I mean, the next day was the fight, right? So you get to the venue. This guy had a pretty big venue set up. It was probably like a 2,000-seater venue. I knew just from my experiences being in the back of all the other fights and managing fighters and everything else was to try to be as relaxed as possible. Some people are shadow boxing at noon at the hotel, and it's like you don't want to do that. So I put in like comedy tapes in my ear, and I'm sitting back listening to the pillow, just going, man, what the hell did I get into? Right? So I get out there, and nothing can prepare you for the adrenaline dump. Like, unless you've been there over and over again. I got in there, and as hard as I had trained, we only went one round. And I called it a fat boy round because halfway through it, he's got Ben Gay on or something. And I'm telling the referee that. And, I'm trying to be – the video looks horrible. It looks like he's just raining punches down. And I remember – it was weird because I remember, don't let him take you down. He's got better stand-up than you, yada, yada, yada. And he rushes in and tries to take me down. Of course, I'm grabbing the fence. No, take him down. Don't try to stand with him. So he's trying to take me down. So then I'm trying to defend that. And I'm thinking, what am I doing? Like, you're trying not to let him impose his will, whatever he's trying to do. But it just instinctively, you're trying to defend that versus that's where I wanted to go.
Even though it fell into your game. Right.
So, and I talked to him. I remember saying, dude, because he hit me, and I was like, dude, you hit hard. And he looked at me, and he said, he was like, what? And I said, yeah. Because that's how I would break up my nervousness, right? Was to, childhood fights. I would tell jokes the entire time while I was fighting. So he hit me again, and I was like, dude, I'm serious. That hurts. And like to me, it was funny, but it was one of those where it was helping to calm me down, right?
Yeah.
So Melvin Guillard was cage side, and he's holding the fence, and I'm looking at Melvin like, dude, we're friends. What are you doing? We're on the ground, and I could smell the Ben Gay. It was Ben Gay or Tiger Bomb or something, and it was that guy Christian, I think, was the one y'all were talking about with Bubby's.
Yeah,
was referee, right?
The drunk referee who you could smell the alcohol in his breath. And
I'm not 100% sure that was him, but So and I know, I mean, he's got a barrage of punches coming down, and I'm deflecting as much as possible. And I know you've got to keep up communication with the referee right now. Like that actually was going through my head. So he would come in with, and I'm deflect a lot of it, and I'm throwing a thumbs up real quick to the referee, going, I'm good, because I'm so scared he's going to stop the fight, and because you don't know what he's seeing, what he's not. So the more communication you can keep with at that time.
And then there's some hometown stuff going on too, obviously.
There was actually I was told there was with that one, but I didn't
Right.
know. They flew like his whole family in or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it happened or not.
Whatever. It's like that guy's from Louisiana, the guy you're fighting, and so is the ref, and so is everyone else
Yeah,
around. Yeah, there's always.
I think
gonna
Bobby was from Ohio, but anyway.
be whatever.
So then I kept saying he's got something on him, and you can see in the video like the referee wipes his back and does this, and I'm like, smell your hand, smell your hand. So he takes off his glove and wipes him and smells him, and it was like halfway in the first round they stopped the fight. Now I'm trying to make it, and they're like, we got to wipe him down. They're wiping him down. The crowd's booing because nobody realizes what's going on.
Yeah, they don't understand.
That's always the biggest thing that I hate. Also, is when something happens, there's an infraction. The crowd needs to be notified of what that is.
Yeah, it's like it's not y'all's fault, and it's definitely not your fault. This guy,
But everybody's sitting back like, boo, and you're going.
It was this scumbag that broke the rules, which is why we're in this place to begin with.
So they're wiping him down. I'm trying to keep a poker face like, I'm good. Meanwhile, I'm going, oh my God. And this is like 2 minutes in, right? And I had, like I said, I had been training for 10 rounds, new person each round. I was a monster. 2 minutes in, oh my God. So then I was like, I need to get it off me too. And so they throw me a towel. I'm sort of trying to buy seconds going, Jesus, I'm about to die. This is horrible. So then we get back in there and we go around a little bit, and I grabbed a heel hook, and I remember he rolled up and looked at me and kind of smiled. I don't think he knew what a heel hook was. And because I was doing something else, and I remember hearing Cam go, let go of that, that's stupid. And I'm going, I don't know what I'm doing. So got a heel hook, and he smiled, and I cranked it, and he tapped real quick, and it was like maybe, hello. It was maybe, what novel was he from? It was like maybe 10 seconds or less left in that round. It was the first round though, and then I laid in the ring like I just ran a marathon. I mean, it was like, and that's what I'm talking about, that adrenaline dump. And I think that's where that whole marijuana thing might help you out with. I've never actually done that before, done the weed. Really because of the fact that my father used to drug test me when I was growing up.
Yeah.
So he was a probation officer, so I was tested on a regular basis. But I really think that I know.
Awesome.
Right? I mean, I would see the test. He would come home with them, and I was like, okay, this has really got weird. Now you can buy the kits anywhere. But it was if you don't have that sense of nervousness walking out, and you're a little bit more calm than the other person, I think that's definitely going to give you a little bit of an advantage. I mean,
Yeah.
because I mean, literally walking out there, you were nervous enough, and then the first time you got hit, you were going, okay, that sucked. I mean, I didn't want to get hit anymore, which is why I told him I didn't want to get hit.
So how did it end?
Heel hook, first round.
Heel hook.
I'm undefeated.
Not too many fights end in heel hook. That's pretty cool. You have a unique finish. Not that like people don't know what a heel hook is, but in MMA, not a lot of heel hook finishes.
I just think I got lucky because I don't think he knew what it was. Like I said, he made a face kind of like he was smiling like, you don't know what you're doing kind of deal. And I really kind of don't think I did. But Cam was like, turn.
Hey,
And so I
grab
just
and
did
crank.
it. It was
there's
like your
something to
battle
that.
bot right there. You know,
Yeah.
go. Okay, I got something. So yeah, that was, like I said, we laid in the cage for probably a good 2 minutes. Like, oh my God.
All right, so you kind of
No,
after getting tipsy one night, you kind of talked yourself into doing
I
this.
don't drink anymore after that night.
And
No, I'm joking.
but then you never fought again.
No.
You're very like complacent with just getting in there, doing it that one time, feeling what it felt like, and you were like, I don't want to do that ever again.
You know what? And that's what I was saying earlier, is it really gives you a different perspective. As hard as I was training for that fight, I went one round with a break in between that round. So
For them to
think
wipe
about
them
the
off,
guys who were
yeah.
going 5 rounds. And
Right.
there's just what? I
Yeah.
mean, and everybody, you go to Buffalo Wild Wings and you listen to people, they're standing, they're squared off, and everybody's screaming, arm bar. They're not even in that position yet. And everybody wants to be that sidearm coach, sitting on the couch yelling moves and everything else, and you have no clue what you're talking about. And, we'll sit in there and we'll listen to that, and you're kind of laughing going, oh, my God, this is entertaining, listen to this. But unless you've been in there and had that taste of it also of, can you even think clearly? You're trying to get your mind to work and breathe at the same time, and the guy's trying to hit you and defend and attack, and, oh, my God, I'm dying here, and that puts a whole new perspective on it. I mean, you get a whole new respect for it also. I mean, look at the guy, like I said, the guys who go 5 rounds and 2 the judges, and they look good afterwards, and you're like going, what did you do to train?
Right.
Because I felt phenomenal driving down to Louisiana.
Confident.
Like, I'm the man. I got this. And it was like, 2 minutes. It was rough.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different game, though. I mean, but we weren't doing a lot of the road work and stuff, the functional fitness training and stuff like that people are doing now.
Right.
I was always told, you don't need to run. We're not
boxers or whatever.
We're not training for a marathon.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So after that, have you decided that you're done promoting MMA events?
Yeah. The state came in, and it was really weird because of the fact that they came in and they were saying, hey, we need people to help us out. So take it back to the original days when I was doing it. It was costing me maybe, payouts, commercials, rental venue, and everything. It was close to $10,000 to put on a fight.
Now it's like 50.
Well, but the thing is now, like I had fight doctors who were just friends who wanted to be there.
Right.
You had judges who were friends who just wanted to be there. And they were knowledgeable in the sport. And they were like, oh yeah, I'll judge. I'll come down to it. Now everybody has their set fees and stuff, and I get it. Everybody wants to be there, and I'm putting in work. I need to get paid. Just the cost figure alone.
Do you think it's 50? If you had to put on a good show right now?
It really comes down to where you're putting it on. Where
Okay,
you're doing it.
a good show around here, not Atlanta, not Chicago.
I don't think 50. So
A mostly pro show with good pro fighters, but to do it local.
if I were to do it, I would probably go. I would aim for 12 fight. I would aim for 14 fights. You're going to get 11. And I would probably try to keep it about 6 amateur. Keep it.
Yeah, I like that.
6 to 7
I like
amateur.
that. And then 5 pro.
But what I'll also do is, so the rules are there advanced amateur and there's amateur.
Right.
So I would try to
Walk it up.
Well,
Amateur, advanced
that's
amateur,
one of the
pro.
things that I see that the promoters are doing now that I just can't stand when I'm watching it is they'll go amateur, advanced amateur, a pro, back to amateur.
Oh, it's disgusting.
And to me, I'm always telling them it's like a salad bar, dude. They
Right.
put all the good stuff at the end,
Right.
Because they want to give you the filler stuff at the front,
Correct.
so you don't eat the meat product at the end. Because
Yes.
that's where the money's.
I'm with you. So you think you could do a good show for much less than 50?
Oh yeah. And I think also if if you're tied in with a guy, some guys you're negotiating with them and they're like, "Look, man, I'll come in there. I know you're trying to help it out. I know you're trying to put a fight on. I'll come in and I'll do it this time for cheap. If you can tie him into like a 2-fight contract, give me on this one and a little bit, and then I'll break it back on the other one.
That's cool.
That's how we'll do it. And it goes back to how did you treat the fighter? Did you treat him great, or did you put him up in a Motel 6 and give him bed bug spray afterwards? I mean, that's legit.
So
It happens.
when you
No spray.
when you jumped on board with the commission, there was like a transitional time for like the state of Georgia. I'm sure it was like cool to be a part of that. What are you doing? What is your job? Like, what do you do? What are your regulatory obligations as the chief of officials?
So, chief officials show up to weigh-ins, making sure everybody makes weight, and that also is something I would talk to big time about. Promoters looking to get in. Check on your fighters.
Knowing the fighters.
Check your fighters' weight a couple of weeks out. There's a big topic right now they're talking about with that, as far as having the state check that out, kind of stuff. It shouldn't fall back to the state. They're trying to keep them in a tighter weight bracket. Back then it was like 220 and up.
Right.
But if you keep constant contact with your fighters, knowing that weight is on, I'm having a problem with weight. If I know I'm having a problem with weight, then I can talk to your opponent and say, hey, he's having a little problem with weight. You want to meet this other one at least beforehand versus when we get to the scales. So I show up and I put them on scales. I make sure everybody's got their physicals done, that stuff the night before. And then the day of, really, you're just, following through the motions, make sure the fight goes through. Honestly, I usually tell the promoters, hey, I used to be a promoter as well. If you need anything, let me know. Behind the scenes stuff, some of the newer guys. I just worked with King of the Cage recently for the first time. And that was really cool because those were old school dudes. I mean, and I'm sure they were like going, God, this is just a fanboy. And it was like, no, man, I know Jeff Osborne with Hook and Shoot. Like, I've been around those days. If you just stay on top of them like that. I tell everybody that night that, I'm a glorified secretary at that point. I'm here to gather paperwork, issuing licensing, that kind of stuff, and taking it from there. Also, at the end, you're making sure that everybody's getting paid and walking out the door. That's pretty much it. And I'll tell them if there's a problem, if something totally goes not in your favor, it goes to the judges, or there's a horrible call by the referee, you feel, you're going to contact the athletic commission at this number, that kind of stuff, and go ahead and forward that information now, because they'll come to you that night going, this is crap, I can't believe this happened, and you're going, I can't fix it. There's no way I can fix it. They'll go overview the tape and look at it from there.
Right. Yeah, the one thing that's good about having a commission involved is not only safety of the fighters and all that, blah, blah, blah. And there is money that goes into the state, which is good to support our regulatory bodies. But one thing also I think that's super important is one thing you were talking about, like the weight cutting for the fighters. Another thing is like that there are official judges. Like one thing that I get that's like a big misconception all the time is they go, what's going on with these UFC judges or these UFC referees? And I have to tell people all the time, can you imagine if the UFC was the one responsible for having their own referees and having their own judges? How like unethical and illegal that it is? No, the state supplies these things. The UFC, when they travel to a state, then they absorb that state governing body and all of its officials. Like if the UFC is paying a referee in the middle of a McGregor and Diaz fight, let's say, who's to say that there's not some funkiness going on under the table? Like, so I have to tell people that all the time. Could you maybe just point that on all the different roles that the state does for our our promotions and our shows? What does the state do for all the events?
Well, it also protects the promoter. And here's a reason that happened, an example that happened. I was doing a show recently, and it was a boxing show. And, you go to these, and sometimes they're just taking dives. And it's blatant dives, like not even getting hit and falling to the mat and the count. And you're going, what just happened? And so what they're doing now is they're actually holding money back. So if you're scheduled to make, $2,000 cash, all of a sudden you didn't get your money because
the fighter.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're robbing them also. They're talking about doing fines now also for people who are showing up late to weigh-ins, which, I mean, I kind of have an issue with that. You're being paid to do a job. So let's just say you work at McDonald's and you show up late. Should you get your full fee? See?
No, that's what I'm saying is like I like the idea. I think that there has to be a presentation to the fighters for them to understand this.
Well, and I agree, and I have no problem hanging out, 30 to 40 minutes afterwards kind of stuff. But you'll have guys that are 2 or 3 hours late sometimes, and you're going, dude. And so, you're trying to, and that's mainly in boxing though. And I've said it left and right that the MMA guys, I can usually push them through a weigh-in session. If they complain, but it might be about an hour and a half maybe. And if everybody's on weight, you're trying to get them in and out. If everybody's done their paperwork prior, then you can get them quick.
So
boxing though,
like I'm not as close to like what happens as you are, but one thing that I see with Georgia specifically, the biggest problem that we have from our fighters is they don't make weight. And there's no punishment for it.
That's exactly what I was saying.
We get a 2-pound allowance here versus other states that give you a pound or some states that give you 0. Georgia gives you a 2-pound allowance, and they still miss weight all the time.
Well, even more so in boxing. You'd be amazed. Like, we're talking 8 pounds off and more sometimes in boxing. You're going, did you never even touch scales? Because they just look at it going, I'm here to make a paycheck real quick, and I'm walking out the door.
What do you think it is with these fighters? One thing I think is that the purses are kind of low sometimes, and that the promoters, they say, well, I'm only going to pay you 250, but I'm going to give you X amount of your ticket sales. So when they miss the weight and they're fined 10, 20, 30% of their purse of 250, that's nothing. But then they're getting the full 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 in ticket sales. So really, I don't think that there's a severe enough punishment currently from the commission, or maybe that's maybe that should be like double team between the commission and the promoter for the fighters that miss the weight.
You don't have any knowledge.
Right, I understand that. That's what I'm saying. It should be tag teamed.
On the ticket sale
Right.
deal. So, like, we're just looking at contracts going, okay, there's a guy for 2 and 2.
So is there a lowest amount that a professional fighter can make?
No, I've seen 0. But you know also that he's doing something. He's making ticket sales or something. He's doing something.
Okay.
And I've seen on the contract 0 or $1. So
Yeah.
but you also know. Yeah, I mean, you see the other guys making like 1,000 or something like that, and you'll see $1 on one. You're going, okay, who's going to win the fight?
Right.
So we're behind the scenes.
Right. Okay.
But that goes back to what I was saying earlier. Stay on top of it and checking weights. And if you're in constant contact with those guys, going, hey, it's 2 weeks out from the fight. How's your weight looking? And they start, how many fights you had also would be, oh, I'm good to go. I can cut 7 pounds a day of the fight. Okay, if I've had 12 fights, I might believe you. But you've had some guys, this is their second fight, and he's saying that, you're going, we got a problem. So it would just be a lot of communication.
Yeah, I don't really know the solution. I just know the problem. And I can see that it's not like, 70% of our fighters made weight on this show. No, dude, right now, Georgia has a real problem. I'll see constantly on the shows. It's like, these guys got to do something. I don't think that weight cutting is the issue, because these guys aren't even cutting. They're just like, they're showing up like, he can take they know when they get there, like, oh, they can take my money. Like, it's just disgusting. There's no professionalism in it, and that's the one thing that I don't know the solution. I think that it's a cultural thing, but there has to be something coming from either the promotion side or the state or a mix of both. Like he was saying that the commission's not involved in their ticket sales. So I don't know if maybe there should be a limit on a professional fight purse, or to where like you taking the 10 or 20% per pound or whatever. Okay, but either way, like I think that maybe if the state was able to pull it out, or the promoter said, "Hey," I don't know what the solution is, but I think it's a big problem.
Do you ever watch the commission does a meeting?
I've seen the live ones a couple times.
Okay. So recently, I would say like maybe 2 months ago, that was the big topic they were talking about as far as trying to stay on top of the weights and what's going on. And that's what I was saying as far as keeping in contact with the fighters, and they're trying to figure out, like, if you're, let's just say, from what I gathered, it hasn't, I mean, don't quote me on any of this, even though it's going to be on the internet. From what I was gathering, they're talking about, if you can't make 185, you're constantly fighting you're constantly coming in at 190, they're just going to say you can't
do like what the UFC does and make you, this is what you fight at now.
Yes.
That's
and like you. Which I kind of have an issue with that, because, I mean, maybe a guy had a bad time cutting one time or two.
Yeah.
But
hey, this is a free country. You should be able to do whatever you want to do.
Within limit.
Yeah. All right, let's get past MMA. Like we harped on enough. It's mostly an MMA show, but let's do what you're doing now. How'd you get involved in the compound and the Spartan races and becoming a coach? How'd you get into this?
I was actually training. This is funny. I was training mixed martial arts.
Okay.
I was training with a guy.
And you got exhausted in your fight, and you were like, "Hey, I gotta do something about this."
Fix my cardio. I was training with a guy named Jason Batchelor. Do you remember him?
No.
So I was training down at the police center downtown, and he turned to me and said, "Man, you need to do this race. It's called the Warrior Dash." And I was like, "Well, what is that?" And this was 2011. And there was no reference point. Nobody had done one in Georgia. I didn't know anybody who was doing them. And it was like, you're jumping over fire, and you're going over these cars. And like, you pull up a video out like somewhere in Texas, and these guys are doing this crazy stuff. And you're like going, oh, my God. Like, this is insane. it was like a 5K, right?
Yeah.
And we were like, oh my God. So I went up and I trained fresh person for 10 rounds every round. I would go out to Emerson Waterworks Park, which they really made that park a nice place now.
Yeah.
I like that, but I don't like it because of the fact that it used to be my private park.
It brings people there now.
Yes, I used to be able to go out there completely by myself and just have the park all day long. And I would run, and it became an obsession because I went on Google Earth and I mapped out Warrior Dash, and it said, I don't know, quarter of a mile obstacle. And they didn't know, you didn't know what the obstacles were. They would call them something stupid. And then I actually mapped out how far it was, and I would go out and I'd run that far, and I would do something called a burpee.
Yeah.
I learned that from Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs. He used to say it was a prison workout. And I saw it, I was like, oh my God, this is great. Because somebody wrote him, how do you stay in shape while you're on the road so much? So, yeah, it was like, I'll show you these burpees. And I was like, okay, I'll start doing those. Never done Spartan or anything. Did that and way overtrained for this. And
For your 5K.
Yeah, I don't even think it was a 5K.
Okay.
It sounded good though. And you're wearing all cotton. You don't know what you're doing. And did that. And then I think I did like 3 laps that day or something. I don't know. Got back. I had a lot of fun. It took me out of my comfort zone a little bit. And I started going, what's the next big thing? Spartan race came around. No, I think it was Tough Mudder. Tough Mudder came around, which was a 12 mile. And
I did an event with Bubby and Eric Kling.
Muddy Buddy.
The Muddy Buddy.
Not that I follow you or stalk you.
I did that one time. It was really, it was easy, but it was fun.
But
And
the
Josh
thing is,
Rubin.
So if you go out and, like, if I go out and run, let's just say I run a 12 mile, like a Tough Mudder. If I go out and just do that distance on the road, it sucks. Like,
Yeah.
I'm in my head too much, and it's not a comfortable place for me to be. But if I'm out doing something in the woods with obstacles, and I see the obstacles from so far away, I'm going, oh my God, here it comes. How am I going to get over this? All of a sudden, my mind starts working off of that, and so I get out of the zone of this sucks to, okay, this is gonna be cool. We're gonna get over that. From there, it became Spartan Race. Spartan Race does a different kind of series, and they do like a 5K sprint. They do a super and a beast.
I don't care about these things. I want to know about the death race.
Oh my God!
What is the death race?
So man, that is the question.
What is it?
What is the death race? The death race was the pinnacle of all the endurance events, Spartan Race and all that. That was the top layer. It was typically held in Vermont, Pittsville, Vermont. A population of 29 people. It's in the mountains. You don't know exactly. It starts when you sign up. That's probably the best way to say it, because they start getting you right there, and then they start playing with your head, emails, message boards, stuff like that. The vet racers will start doing that also, and they'll kind of get in your head a little bit as well. You show up, and they may tell you the race starts at 7 a.m. on Thursday. And then you'll get an email the night before, okay, the race is starting in 30 minutes. It'll be like that.
Okay.
So they'll give you like a packing list, and you will have some things to take. You don't know how long it's going to last, how many hours, how many days. I've done some that went 36 hours straight, some that went 57, 70 hours straight. And you just go. They'll say, you're going to hike up, 10 miles, go chop a cord of wood, and come back with some of the wood. And I mean, you're just grinding it out. And so you don't know. One time they had us in a cabin. We're in the snow. It's 6 degrees outside, and they have us in a cabin doing ballet for like 4 hours. And the entire time you're going, there's going to be a puzzle or a quiz to this. Like, you're in your head constantly. Every race is different. And I've watched them line everybody up, 50 or 60 hours in, and they'll start in your head and, do you have what it takes to finish, that kind of stuff. And people will walk off, that they're just mentally done. If they can catch you, if they see a chink in the armor, they're coming in.
They're going to attack it.
Oh, and
that's awesome.
You have to play that. Like, I don't wear my Santa gear while I'm racing there.
No, I'm sure.
I
sure.
blend.
Right.
And then, like I said, you see people walk off, or they'll say, okay, everybody pack up your bags. We're going to be back we went back for like another 30 hours. Pack up your stuff. And people are going, 30 hours, another 30 hours. Can I do another 30 hours? And they're walking off, and the race is finished. And those people didn't finish, and you did. So it's a constant mind game. Some of the ones I've done, we were talking about sleep deprivation and stuff like that recently. You'll see things, you're hallucinating. The first few that I did, the first one I did.
How many have you done total?
I attempted 5, finished 4.
Gotcha.
Mexico did a team, did a summer, did a winter. Went back for a second. The first one I did was like a beatdown. Like I was just looking for, like I had some personal issues, I guess, going on that I was just trying to get out. And it was just one of those things where you don't know what's going to happen. And, I finished in the middle of the pack. I kept low and then I started going back just to hang out with the people that I met up there. And it was...
That's cool, like when you can do something like that and then you develop a community.
Yeah, we hiked... The very last one that I did, we hiked 33 miles barefoot over the Green Mountains, and we were tied together in a daisy chain.
We were talking about on his interview podcast we did last week about the shared suffering between individuals and how that can bring you together.
That's what I said was, that's when you know someone for real. That's when all your layers have been peeled back after so many hours, and that person beside you is also, and how do they react, and that's when you find that true person.
Are they a teammate? Are they a quitter?
Yeah,
somebody you can count on.
There's a guy that I met that I couldn't stand when I first met him, and then so many hours into it, we became like best friends. Shane Ellison, and he lives way up north, but
does that mean Maine or does that mean North
Virginia.
Georgia?
Virginia,
way up north.
Way up north, Virginia, 9 hours. But we were tied together. We started. In Mexico, we were laughing so much. But you're doing these stupid things now, and you're laughing, and having fun doing it. Going, there's no way they're going to break us. We have a good bond going. We've got a good sense of humor, a good mental frame. And once you can take yourself out of all that and just focus on the task at hand, and that was a big takeaway for me was, you apply these things in your life. You no matter what, don't look down the road. Focus on what's in front of you right now. And then, we're in there going with ballet for so long, you're thinking, what in the hell are we doing? But come to find out, we're just doing ballet. Don't overthink it. Just keep, everybody's got, struggles and everything else. And that's what I liked about the Spartan races also. Everybody's got walls. Everybody's got these little obstacles in your life. No matter what you do, that obstacle's going to be there. Are you going to find a way to get over it, or are you going to sit there and just look at it? So it was a really good metaphor. There were nights that I would just put on a backpack and I would, I'll be back tomorrow, and just go hiking and you're just training for it and stuff. But it got to be like there's a close community of friends that I've met all over the United States that I through these races that those are my brothers and sisters right there that you suffered so much together that there's a tight bond there with them.
And I'm sure, like, even if you didn't know somebody, if you met somebody and you knew that they were a 9-time death race finisher, you instantly probably have some sort of like
nobody's got 9 yet.
Whatever, but, you know what I'm saying? Like, what they would maybe. I
didn't realize this, but I actually had some of the higher numbers. Like I was in a higher percent. Like there might be a 6 and a 7, maybe, but.
But when somebody's like that, you instantly probably have a connection.
You have but so that goes back to the old school days. I used to be able to go out to a club or something like that, and you would have a fight shirt on, right? And the community was so small back then that
it was really cool.
Somebody would walk up and they were like, "Hey, man," and either you knew that guy, you knew somebody they had fought, or somebody they trained with. That's how, no matter where you were in the United States. And then the Ultimate Fighter happened, and that was the big explosion.
Yeah.
But it had to happen, right?
Yeah.
So, those races, and it's funny because I put on one now.
I was about to ask, do you have one coming up, or?
I put on one. It's called the Gauntlet.
Yeah. I read that. I read that on your profile on y'all's website on the compound. Mm-hmm. I checked out. What is the Gauntlet?
So the Gauntlet is held in Middle Georgia, and it's an endurance event that'll last. This one is going to be. We used to do 2 a year. Now we're doing just on Labor Day weekend. We're doing more like ruck races also, but it's a race series that it'll start on a Friday, might end on a Saturday night or a Sunday morning. Just like, again, you don't know. It could go 24 to 36 hours.
It's just in Georgia?
Right now it's just in Georgia. Okay. Molina gave us the camp. There's a Boy Scout camp there, Camp Thunder. Did you ever go there? It's on the other side of Thomaston. They've got everything. They just basically say, "Here, take the camp and have fun." What?
Do I look like a boy that went to Camp Thunder? I don't know.
I mean, I don't know if you were in Scouts or not.
No.
Man. Anyway, so, yeah, and we come up with just these incredible tasks that'll do. And like one of the last ones, we had them in Tyvek suits out in the sun doing yoga for a couple hours. And it was just, you got to stay moving. You got to stay moving.
When's the next one?
Labor Day weekend.
Labor Day weekend. When I don't know when Labor Day is. What
September
is that?
something.
Okay. Is this its own event, or is it Spartan certified, or I don't know? Like, does it give you points for anything?
No.
Other than the Gauntlet series?
This is just our own event here.
Okay.
Spartan has hired me. I come on as one of their Cryptea to run something they call the Hurricane Heat. So that's like they'll do like a 4-hour Hurricane Heat endurance event, or a 12-hour, and there's a 24-hour they'll do as well. So they hired me to come in to help lead those as well.
And so within your series, the Gauntlet, I'm sure that you probably get to train the people at the compound for that race and other races too. No,
that's the big no right there. Because I just don't want that conflict. And here's the reason why.
I don't see a problem with it.
Well, so
you can't divulge what the things are, but why not? Why can't you train them?
I don't train. I would never train them specifically for that. I would. They still can come into the gym and train normal like everybody else, but because there's so much of a twist and turn, like every event is crazy. We've done, Cowboys and Indians, themes and stuff like that, and there might be a buy-in where if you've done something wrong, you can get back in the race. It would almost be to me, it's a huge conflict of interest. And I will try to keep everything as clean as up and possible. If someone from the gym wins the race, the people who came down from New York to compete in the race are going to look at it going, did they have insider information? They knew where to go hide food. Because in Vermont, but that's legit, right? So,
I would think, hey, these guys over here are bad to the bone. I noticed that the compound guys finished first, second, and fourth.
But here's the problem with that.
You know what we need to do? We need to come
along the same lines of UFC having their own refs.
Correct. There you go, right there. That's exactly it.
I would think maybe I need to come to a training camp.
So
with,
did
with,
they know?
the guys
Did this person know that? Because there's a point system also, right? So some things are for points and some things are not. So if you knew this was not for points, would you put in maximum effort? And so if somebody had whispered in your ear, "Hey, this isn't for points, back off." And I've wanted to say that so many times because I'm friends with some of these people.
Okay,
I become really good friends with these guys. There was a kid named Gavin who is, no lie, I met him, I want to say he was like 14. And I met him at a Hurricane Heat. And this dude, grown adults were just in a 4-hour sufferfest, which 4 hours, you could pretty much do almost anything to me. 4 hours, he's laughing and giggling. And I was like, dude, how old are you? He was 14. And I was like, maybe 15. I said, find me after this event. So he found me after the event. And I said, he contacted me on Facebook, and I said, dude, I've got an event in Georgia. Come down to it. I'm free pass. Come on in here and try it out. It's a kid, right? This kid can outwork. He probably weighs 135 pounds soaking wet. He can outwork grown adults like a champ and smile the entire time like nothing's fazing him. So later on, you ask him, so what drives you? What's your background? What do you have going on? Oh, I've been a farmer since I was like 6. And so you're going, oh my God, what? And he would ride his bike, go work at a farm, and go ride back for lunch, and then go ride his bike at that age. So he'll come down, and when he shows up, you're going, here's a little skinny kid, but he can clean press, weight that most grown adults can't. And you got guys like, we got guys with beards like Alan Weaver, who the beard doesn't give him any power. So everybody in here's got one. It sounded good.
Ours have power.
So you have things like that, and you're looking at them going, God, this. I watched some guys recently at one of the last races, and you want to say, back down, back off, and the quote that I've been quoted on the most, the statement I've been quoted on the most is, I want to take you to that wall where you say, I cannot do it, and then realize, yes, I can. I want to get you to that spot mentally where you're going, I'm done. And I'll tell people in other races, they'll say, you're out, done. I'll tell them, come to me before you check out, because I want to talk you back in real quick. I want to motivate you to push you a little bit harder and realize, okay, this isn't as bad as you thought it was going to be. You know, and once you can unlock those things in your head, you realize, you know, life isn't as bad as you thought it was going to be. So, and there are people who come down and I'll tell them, at 4 hours in, don't come to me complaining. You know, I'm not going to try to hold your hand at that point. But if you've gotten 24 hours, come to me and see me before you check out. So Blake Rice's wife came down and did it.
That's cool.
And she did amazing.
Because you know, a lot of people, they're skittish about just showing up to do anything. They want to do some research. How do they find?
I want to get in shape first before I come down.
Yeah, I want to get in shape
You know how many
before I
times
come
I've
get in
heard
shape.
that and mixed martial arts. I need
Yeah.
to get in shape before I train.
I
It's
tell
going to
pe-
get you in shape.
I tell people now, would you tell your like a principal that your kid is too stupid? He has to get smarter before he can get enrolled in school. No,
I hear it with
No.
yoga all the time. People be like, I'm going to get more flexible, then I'll come to your class. Nah, you come to get flexible.
It's the push pull.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
What else do you have? What do you have coming up?
So I hope that we'll be able to open our doors here pretty soon.
Man,
One day.
I've watched how this has just been, you know, collapsing left and right, and nobody knows what's going on with it. But I don't think that the don't laugh about that.
No, dude, I love this flyer. This one right here. I remember this flyer.
You know, I that was a Camo Card special.
Yeah. Yep. I love that picture. That one with him with all the belts.
Those were all him kicking.
Yeah.
That was his greeting kick.
Kicking people in the head. And there's Cliff choking out a guy in a gi and ground and pounding somebody from the mount.
Oh, that was a guy from the UFC. He was like in the fourth or fifth, I don't know. Joel somebody.
Well, is there anything else you want to add?
No, that's about it.
Well, cool. Well,
How are you doing, Micah?
Good. I want to give a shout out to the fight that we're going to try to promote, get everybody in there.
Yeah, that we were
picked.
Dude, we know we want to do it in 2020, but we just don't have anything together yet. We don't have anything yet.
We want to get all the old school people, the current school people, and some of the new school people all on a show together.
Here you go. He's from Macon.
Well, Ken Shamrock was born at the Robbins Hospital or in Macon in a hospital, but he didn't live here, you know. So it's not like he's a local from here. Well, thanks for
the first UFC, they said that he was from Macon.
he was born in Macon or something. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Tell us, Michael. What'd you learn about Ken Shamrock? What was his days in Macon?
No, there aren't a lot. It's just the fact that he was
Born from here, then he.
Yeah, because
He was a bully.
it was really just about
Was he a bully?
I think he left real early. He was adopted.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of Georgia related history. I just remember that was the birthplace or hometown.
And
or
then he was
whatever.
adopted
and
by-
then he left.
You know, whatever. Bob Shamrock.
Yeah.
So I just
whatever.
basically told his story.
Frank was adopted too, though, right?
But
Let's see. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, they were both adopted. Yeah.
Where's Jason Mayhem Miller?
In California still, I think. I saw him back on social media. He seems to be doing better.
He's doing a podcast, MMA Roasted or something. He's working with a guy out there. I've seen some stuff.
That was one of those guys that you were going, phenomenal skill when he was going. And then things kind of spun and you were going, what's going on? So, and you didn't know if that was a shtick or he was doing or not. And it went downhill quick. But it's good to hear that he's good.
Well, listen. Thanks for everything that you've done for us in Georgia MMA. It was really cool.
It was a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it was cool having somebody like you look out after us, you know, when we didn't know what we were doing. And
I didn't know what I was doing either. I was good at faking it.
But you were a promoter and you kind of knew what was going on and you talked to people for us when we didn't know how to talk to people. And then you went to work on for the state. And I think it's important that we had you here to be able to educate. That's a big thing that's important for me is educating the people on who was here first and who did it earlier and what was done and what it was like and all the things that you guys get to enjoy and see now. It wasn't always like this and it had to evolve to be this. Yeah. And to be able to see especially for Georgia, that's important for me. And you made a big impact for not only me and myself, in my progress of becoming a mixed martial arts fighter, but for Georgia's mixed martial arts. And I'm super grateful.
It was a pleasure to be a part of it.
Cool.
I remember actually when you fought in the UFC that time, I was walking. I had to walk someone else out, and then I ran as fast as I could. I don't know if you even knew that. You remember when I walked you out because I was an inspector.
For
I ran as fast as I could. I
that one for Cecilia
over there, and I ran as fast as I could. I said, "I'm gonna walk him out."
You said, "Do your fucking shit." That's what he said. And I was like, "Yeah, that's what's about to go down."
I wanted that one walkout. That was that thing. It was like, okay, I'm gonna run it real quick and jump in. So,
all right. Well, we're gonna start a film session next. So, if you guys want to see more of Matt Waller, check out the YouTube only film sessions, film fight Friday film sessions. It'll be on YouTube.